When you're young, health feels like air, so constant you don't even notice it. You walk, you run, you eat anything, stay up late, bounce back from stress. You believe your body will always be there for you, until it isn't. The third regret people shared over and over wasn't dramatic. It wasn't even about disease or pain, really. It was about the slow, creeping realization that they hadn't taken care of their health when they had the chance. I wish I'd taken better care of myself, they'd say. Sometimes with a shrug, sometimes with a heavy sigh, sometimes while sitting in a wheelchair or adjusting an oxygen tank. One man put it this way: when we're young, we trade our health for money. Then when we're old, we use the money to try and buy back our health, but it's never quite the same. That line hit me, and I think it might hit you too. Because for many of us, especially those who worked long hours, raised families, made sacrifices, self-care wasn't even a phrase we used back then. You pushed through. You toughed it out. You were needed. And in all that, your body took the back seat. But the truth is, your body was always listening, always absorbing. The late nights, the stress, the skipped meals, the ignored checkups, the quiet signals you brushed off until they got louder. And now maybe you're starting to feel it. In your joints, in your energy, in the way it takes a little longer to recover from simple things. But here's the good news, it's not too late. Not to be perfect, but to be better. The body may slow down with age, but it never stops responding to care. You don't need to run marathons. You don't need to become a health nut. You just need to start listening and honoring what it's telling you. It could be something as simple as taking a walk every morning. Not power walking, just moving, letting your body feel sunlight on your skin, stretching your legs, breathing deeper. Or maybe it's drinking more water, swapping one processed meal for something a little fresher, going to that doctor's appointment you've been postponing. And let's talk about sleep, because I know that gets tricky with age. But sometimes better sleep starts with small changes, a quieter room, a calming bedtime routine, even something as simple as putting your phone away an hour before bed. Your health doesn't ask for perfection. It just asks for attention. And the longer you delay, the more regret builds. You don't want to be the person who looks back and says, if only I'd taken it more seriously, maybe I'd still be able to travel. Maybe I wouldn't be in pain all the time. Maybe I'd feel free. I met a woman in her late 70s who started swimming again after 30 years. Not to lose weight, not to be fit, but because she remembered how it made her feel when she was younger, weightless, joyful, free. She said the first time she stepped into the pool again, she cried. Not from pain, but from coming home to herself. That's what taking care of your body can do. It gives you access to you again. Not the tired, worried, run-down version, but the one you haven't seen in a while. The one who still wants to live. Because here's what most people don't say out loud. Aging isn't just about getting older. It's about letting go of what you thought was permanent. Your strength, your independence, your memory. And that can be scary. But taking care of your health today in whatever small way you can is how you reclaim some of that power. It's how you remind yourself, I'm still here. I still matter. I still have choices. So ask yourself, what's one small thing I could do for my body today? Not out of fear, but out of love. Because your body, it's not just a machine. It's your home. The only one you'll ever truly live in. And it deserves your kindness now more than ever. And if you're thinking, it's too late for me, let me gently say this. No, it isn't. It's only too late if you believe it is. Some of the most meaningful turnarounds happen not in youth, but in the later chapters. when you've seen enough of life to really understand what's at stake. So don't wait until you're sitting in a hospital bed to start listening to what your body has been whispering for years. You still have time, and you're worth the effort. Now, if you've made it this far, I want to tell you something important. These 3 regrets, living for others, not spending time with loved ones, neglecting your health, they're not just about looking back. They're about what's ahead. Because the life you want, the peace you long for, it's not behind you. It's still ahead, waiting. In the next part, we'll go deeper. We'll explore something that doesn't often get talked about, but sits in the hearts of so many seniors, the quiet ache of missed purpose and the surprising places you can still find meaning. Even now. See you there. There's a kind of silence that doesn't come from the room, being quiet. It comes from within you. It's the silence you hear when you ask yourself, did I really live the life I was meant to live? Not the one expected of you. Not the one that felt safe or convenient, but your life. This is one of the most haunting regrets that surfaced in conversation after conversation. Not just the fear of dying, but the fear of dying without ever really having lived. I remember talking to a man in his 80s. He'd been a loyal husband, a responsible father, a hard-working employee at the same company for over 40 years. He said, I did everything right, but somewhere along the way, I forgot to ask if it was what I wanted. His voice cracked a little. I spent my life being what everyone needed me to be, but I don't think I ever got to be me. That one stuck with me, because isn't that true for so many of us? We wear masks for different roles, parent, provider, spouse, citizen. And often we wear them for so long we forget their masks. There's nothing wrong with responsibility. There's nothing wrong with sacrifice. But when all of that comes at the cost of your inner voice, your dreams, your curiosities, your spark, that's where the regret grows roots. And the hardest part? No one tells you when that moment of too late arrives. It doesn't come with a warning. It just shows up one day, when your body slows down, when your friends start disappearing, when you finally have time to sit and reflect, and all you hear is the echo of what if. What if I had taken that trip? What if I'd learned to paint? What if I told her how I really felt? What if I hadn't waited so long? But here's the thing. This regret doesn't have to be your final story. There's a kind of quiet joy that blooms when someone realizes, it's not too late to rediscover myself. And yes, rediscovery is possible at 60, 70, even 80. Sometimes especially then, because now you've lived. You've seen pain and love and loss. You know what matters and what doesn't. And from that wisdom, you get to ask again, what brings me alive? I once met a woman who started writing poetry at 74. She said, I never thought I had anything worth saying, but I just kept waking up with verses in my head. Now her little poems are framed in her home, sent to her grandchildren, read aloud at family dinners. She didn't do it for fame. She did it because it made her feel like herself. That right there is the opposite of regret. See, the biggest mistake isn't living someone else's dream. It's believing you're too old to chase your own. You're not even close. Because purpose doesn't have a deadline. Meaning doesn't expire. And that fire inside you, the one that flickers when you remember what used to make you smile, it's still there. Maybe it's gardening. Maybe it's writing letters to your younger self. Maybe it's taking long walks, helping a neighbor, recording old family stories. Whatever it is, it's never too small to matter. And if you've been waiting for permission, this is it. You don't have to climb a mountain or start a business. You just have to follow what feels real. Because the opposite of regret is alignment with who you are, with who you were always meant to be. And as we move toward the close of this video, I want to leave you with this. No matter how many years you've lived, you still have more memories to make, more laughter to share, more chances to be proud of the life you're living. So take that chance. Not tomorrow, not next week, today. And in the next part, we'll go even deeper. Because behind all these regrets, behind the choices we wish we'd made, is something more subtle. A truth that most people only see when it's too late. That peace doesn't come from perfection. It comes from presence. You know, as we've talked about these regrets, living for others, not spending enough time with loved ones, neglecting our health, forgetting our dreams. There's something all of them have in common. They don't hit you all at once. They build quietly over the years. They grow in the moments we don't notice because we're too busy, too distracted, or simply too tired. But underneath all these regrets is a deeper one that many people don't realize until it's far behind them. They say, I wish I had been more present. Present with my children when they were young. Present with my partner when we still had dinner together. Present with myself when I had the energy, the time, the freedom to enjoy life, but didn't. It's so easy to miss life while we're living it. We scroll, we rush, we worry, we wait for the next moment, the next thing, the next version of enough. And then one day we look back and realize we were always in a hurry to get somewhere, but never quite sure where. I remember sitting with a gentleman in his late 70s. He'd lost his wife 2 years earlier, and he told me we had 50 years together. But if I'm honest, I think I really lived maybe 10 of them. The rest, I was just going through the motions. That shook me, because this wasn't a man who didn't love his wife. He adored her. But between the routines and responsibilities, between raising kids and paying bills, he simply forgot to pause, to savor the little moments. But a hand held across the dinner table, the way she laughed at old TV shows, the quiet joy of making coffee together on Sunday mornings. He said, I thought I'd have more time. That's the thing about presence. It always seems like we'll have another moment, until we don't. But here's what's beautiful. Presence is something we can choose, no matter our age. Even now, wherever you are, you can slow down, feel your breath, look outside and notice the light falling on the trees. Listen to the sound of your own heartbeat. That's you alive right now. And that's something millions of people would give anything to feel again. So if regret is built in the moments we miss, then peace is built in the moments we choose to see. And I know, sometimes presence can feel lonely, especially when the house is quiet, when people you love have moved away or moved on. But there's still life all around you, in every bird that lands on the windowsill, in every child you smile at the grocery store, in every memory you hold close, and every story you still get to share. You matter, and your life is still happening. Right now. So take the walk, write the letter, call the friend you haven't spoken to in years. Say thank you. Say I love you. Say I'm proud of you. Because one day those small things, they'll be the big things. I've seen people in their 60s who finally started painting. People in their 70s who finally learned to say no and yes. People in their 80s who finally made peace with their past. It's never too late to start living in a way that leaves no room for regret. Not a perfect life, just a present one. So as we head into the final part of this video, I want to ask you something. If there's one thing your future self would thank you for doing today, what would it be? Whatever your answer is, that's your invitation to begin again. You know, as we get older, birthdays feel different. They're no longer about balloons or cake. They're about reflection, about quietly asking, did I live this year well? And if you've ever felt like time slipped through your fingers, if you've ever looked back and thought, I wish I had done more, loved more, been more, please know this, you're not alone. Regret is part of being human, but so is hope. And the beauty of this moment, this one right now, is that you're still here, still breathing, still capable of choosing something new. The truth is, we don't always get to rewrite the past, but we do get to decide what kind of story we live from here. And that story doesn't need to be loud or impressive. It just needs to be real. A walk under the morning sun, a note left for someone you love, a laugh shared with someone who gets you. That's a life worth living. You see, the 3 regrets we talked about, not living true to yourself, not spending enough time with loved ones, not taking care of your health, they're really just reflections of one deeper truth. We all want to feel that our life meant something, that we showed up as who we really are, that we gave our love freely, that we didn't waste the time we were given. And that's not about how many things you check off a bucket list. It's about how deeply you live the moments right in front of you. So if you've been waiting for a sign to finally forgive yourself, this is it. If you've been waiting to say what's been sitting in your heart, say it now. If you've been waiting to start something new, even if it's small, begin today. You are never too old to start living fully. You are never too late to choose peace. And you are absolutely never beyond the reach of love, especially your own. I know this video may have stirred something inside you, a memory, a tear, maybe even a quiet kind of hope. If it has, then let it stay with you. Let it guide you gently forward. You deserve a life with no more pretending, no more waiting, just a heart open to the beauty of each day, exactly as it is. So here's to you, to the years you've lived, to the wisdom you carry, and to the days still ahead, waiting to be filled with meaning. If this touched your heart in some way, feel free to share your thoughts below. Sometimes, the simple act of telling your story helps someone else feel less alone. Thank you for being here, for listening, for still believing that life can surprise you, because it can, and it will. Keep going one beautiful moment at a time. You know, they say time speeds up as we get older. One day you're raising kids, working hard, going from one thing to the next, and the next, you're looking back and wondering where it all went. The noise fades. The phone doesn't ring as much. You sit with your coffee, maybe by a window, and life feels quieter than it used to. And in those quiet moments, something begins to rise, something deeper than nostalgia. It's reflection, and sometimes it's regret. They say, the young fear not living enough. The old regret living too little. That line sticks, doesn't it? In over 100 conversations with people in their 70s, 80s, even 90s, the same 3 regrets kept coming up, over and over again. Not about careers, not about money, but about life, what they did, and more importantly, what they didn't do. But here's the thing, you still have time. You still have the power to write your story forward. So let's talk about these 3 biggest regrets people have later in life, and how you can still avoid them. Because if there's one gift this chapter of your life can offer, it's clarity. And with clarity comes freedom. Let's start with the first one. And it's a heavy one, because it hits the soul more than anything else. Most people don't say this out loud until they're well into their 70s or 80s. But when they do, it's almost always followed by a long pause. Like they're sifting through decades of memory in a single breath. They say, I wish I'd lived a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me. That's it. That's the first regret. And it's not about one big decision. It's about hundreds of small ones. Little choices where people said yes when they meant no. Times they held their tongue to avoid rocking the boat. Years spent chasing approval instead of joy. One woman, 82 years old, told me something I'll never forget. She said, "I spent my entire life trying to be the daughter my parents wanted, then the wife my husband expected, and the mother I thought I was supposed to be. But I never asked myself, what do I want?" And she said it with tears in her eyes, not from sadness, but from the weight of finally saying it out loud. You see, many of us were raised to put others first, to be agreeable, to follow the path that looked right on the outside, even if it didn't feel right on the inside. But now you have the space to finally ask, what do I want? What matters to me? Maybe you always wanted to paint, or take a road trip by yourself, or tell your story truthfully without sugarcoating. Or maybe it's simpler than that. Maybe you just want to say what's on your heart without second guessing yourself. But here's the truth nobody tells you when you're younger. The longer you wait to live your truth, the harder it becomes to find it. Some people waited their whole lives to be allowed to be themselves. They thought they had time, but time isn't always generous. So if you feel that stirring inside, maybe it's a quiet voice saying, I want more, or I'm tired of pretending, listen to it. That's your spirit trying to come home to itself. That's not selfish. That's survival. Being true to yourself doesn't mean being loud or rebellious. Sometimes it just means being honest. Saying no when you mean no. Saying, I miss you even if it's hard. Telling the truth, especially to yourself. Because at the end of life, what keeps you up at night isn't what you did, it's what you didn't do. That brings us to the second regret. A quieter one, but maybe even more painful. It's the kind that sneaks up on you in the stillness of the evening. You see, a lot of people don't realize what matters most until it's too late to go back and hold it tighter. They say, I wish I'd spent more time with the people I loved. Not a single person ever said, I wish I worked more, or I wish I spent more time cleaning the house. Not once. What they talk about is the missed phone calls, the birthdays they didn't show up for, the daughter they haven't spoken to in years because of a small misunderstanding that grew into a wall, the friend they meant to visit but kept putting off until it was too late. Love asks so little of us, and yet we give it so little time. There was a man, 76 years old, who said something that made the whole room go quiet. He said, my biggest regret is thinking I had more time to say I'm sorry. It was about his son. They had a falling out, something small years ago, and he kept waiting for the right moment to reach out. But the years slipped by, and his son passed unexpectedly. Now all he has is a voicemail he listens to once in a while. That's the thing with time. It doesn't warn you when it's running out. So if there's someone on your heart right now, a friend, a sibling, a child you haven't talked to, this is your sign. Reach out. Say the thing you've been meaning to say. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be real. Sometimes just a simple I miss you is enough to reopen a door that's been closed for too long. And if they don't respond, you'll still know that you showed up. You did your part. And that counts for something. Because one day, all those little things, the phone calls, the hugs, the shared dinners and long walks become memories. And when the people are gone, those memories are all we have left. So why not make a few more while you still can? In the next part, we'll talk about the third regret that shows up more often than you might expect, and why it may be the most preventable one of all. It has to do with something we often take for granted when we're younger, but wish we'd protected more fiercely once it's too late. I'll see you there.